Hey guys, how are you all doing? Dang. Well, guys, I'm just hanging out. My kids will be home from school in about an hour and 15, so I figured since I got a little bit of time to hang out with you guys, I would go ahead and do it on a weekday since typically I do it on the weekend and not everyone always gets a chance to see the weekend streams. So I hope everyone's doing all right. I don't have anything specific. Hey, welcome, Josh. Thanks for joining us for the first time. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay, or if there's a problem with the feed or anything. I'm trying it in a new space, a little quieter here than the lab. What's up, Care to Grow? T Walker. Hope you guys are doing all right today. Good. I'm glad it's loud and clear. Thank you. Well, does anybody have any questions? You guys want me to just ramble on, or how you guys want this to go? Yeah, I feel you. That's the same thing. My kids will be here like 4 o'clock off the bus. So what's up, goddesses? Good to see you again. You do what?
She's been consistent on here.
I don't think she was on our second one, but she was on our first one for sure. AVE Terrence McKenna. What about Terrence McKenna? Did I get your message on Instagram? Did you send it to my Myco Miner page or to the Mossy Creek Mushrooms page? Because I actually don't run our Mossy Creek Mushrooms page. That would be Robin and Samantha. Samantha only occasionally. So I run an Instagram account called Myco Miner. It's MYCO Miner, as in like mining mushrooms, mining fungus, that kind of thing.
What's his username?
Well, it's Goddess's Elemental Design Studios. So any more mushroom wine recipes? I don't have a ton of mushroom wine recipes. I've heard of a lot of people using chanterelles to brew with and it being pretty good, though that's typically paired with beer and not wine. I would love to have some more wine recipes. Let's see. Oh my gosh, guys. YouTube, brother. I must have missed something. Oh my gosh, you guys are going faster than I can read. Are psilocybin strains available for purchase in Colorado where it's legal? So it's not legal in Colorado. It is decriminalized in Denver and then one other township, I think. So it's not legal in Colorado. You can get spores from all kinds of online purveyors. So for sure. Well, okay, I got you guys. She's looking it up right now. Myco's Mama is her Instagram handle. What do you think is most important when starting out in mushroom growing? Working backwards. Start with the actual growing of the mushrooms. I wrote a blog post called The Importance of Working Backwards. It's on our mosscreekmushrooms.com page. And basically, I just talk about just start with the mushrooms. The lab skill set is very sexy to have. I know. I really enjoy having that skill set. That's where I started, was in the laboratory side of things. And I wish that I had started growing with mushrooms, because with the mushrooms, you get early successes. You get your early failures. You get your reward right away. And you don't have to, work a whole bunch of steps that can go wrong before you get that success. So buying a kit usually and then going that way. If you're wanting to do it for profit, that's, basically the same thing, just slightly different scale. Where do you get most of your substrate material from? The Farmers Co-op.
I don't see it.
Goddess says she said that she's not seeing.
I saw the one Goddess glass, but I don't see anything.
She said that she's not finding yours in the messages.
That's the request from today, and then.
Yeah, Goddess says we're not seeing any messages to Mossy Creek Mushrooms account. If you can tell us what day, maybe we can look it up by date or something. Sterility. Bikini Bottom says sterility. Okay. I got to get back up to your original. AVE, Terrence McKenna, sterility. Bikini Bottom, I'm not sure what you're saying. Hi, where do you get most of your substrate material from? We did that one. If you had access to tons and tons of horse manure, would you grow buttons or not worth the effort? Yeah, I mean, I would grow buttons. I think that you could make money growing buttons, kind of like we are, in bags, and then just doing it off the top. I would just go straight for the restaurants and not for, if you're starting off small like we are in a you don't have a giant warehouse or anything like that. Start with your buttons, portobellos, creminis, those kinds of things. I would try other dung lovers, potentially, like see if you can get wine cap to produce a regular crop, the milky mushroom in the summertime, just things like that will get you going and have a little bit of variety. But I think that you could absolutely do it. I've looked at the grocery store prices for buttons and portobellos, and I think you could do it. Oysters are just easier. Myco's Mama on Instagram is so it's MYCOSMAMA. We're going to see if we can find you. For some reason, you're not showing up as having sent us a message. Care to Grow says, do you have a strong season with your restaurant, and how do you manage off-season sales? We do have a strong season, but our off-season is about 600 pounds a week, and our peak season is about 900 pounds a week. And that's usually from February to May, we start doing 900 pounds a week, and then it kind of slowly drops off until like wild mushrooms start coming in, tomatoes, peppers. When tomatoes and peppers are coming on strong, we see a reduction in sales for fresh mushrooms. Our spawn sales actually typically go up in the summertime, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. The off season, I just average everything out and save money whenever we've had a good season, and then when we're in the off season, we kind of live off savings, that kind of thing. Try to stay away from credit. May Shrooms LLC said, just curious, what autoimmune disorder do you have? So I don't. Okay. I've been diagnosed with asthma, reactive airway disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus runs in my family, but they haven't tested me for lupus yet. I'm actually supposed to get a test for it soon. And they said that all of my symptoms may be from lupus, the organ kind, not the skin kind. So you have ankylosing I don't even know what that is, which is part of the reason I became a mushroom farmer. Make sure I've not heard of that one. I don't know what that is. Care to Grow is in Jamaica. And Pimp Jerk says Spain. Let's see. Oh gosh, Pimp Jerk. That is an interesting name. And Goddess, you tried to email too?
So on Micah Mama, I just sent you a message.
Okay, Samantha said she just sent you a message, so that'll get us in contact with you. See, Bikini Bottom says Cubensis spores are legal everywhere. Yeah, everywhere except Georgia, and there are a couple of states that they're not legal. So Bikini, be careful with that. All right, Goddesses. I don't know when you're coming back, but you may already be back already. I'm trying to keep up with you guys. Is the farmer co-op specific to state? Not that I know of. A farmer co-op is just like I don't know if. I assume every state has them. Most farming communities have these co-ops, which are you go in and you purchase your materials from these co-ops. They're typically not trying to make a gigantic profit. They're there as kind of a service for the farmers, and they cover all kinds of things. It's different than like a grocery store co-op. There are grocery store co-ops, and then there are farmers co-ops. Curiosity said, damn, I'd like to participate, but I guess I have a guest at home. Enjoy. Oh, man, sorry. We'll do it again. Trust me, we'll do it again. We'll have you around. Monday at 3:52 is what Goddess has said. But T. Walker said, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, Goddesses. I don't know how I didn't see a email from you either, and I've checked my spam folder just now. So, but we'll get you taken care of. We'll get in contact with you. Thank you for letting us know that we've got a problem with that. Josh Banks, how do you figure out when to make more bags to keep in rotation and always have mushrooms? We make the same amount of bags every week. We follow up. We start by working backwards. You want to, in fact, you know what? I'll do a video. I'm going to do a video on working backwards on how to do this. But the short of it is, if I want 100 pounds of mushrooms, and I know that my mushroom blocks are going to produce about 3 pounds per first flush, then I know that I need 33.333 blocks produced per week. Your second flush, I never count my second flushes because you never know if you're actually going to get a steady amount off those or not. That doesn't really matter. Just I always go off first flush because if you don't make money on your first flush, it's going to be hard to make money going forward. So I know that I need to make 33.333 blocks per week, and so we just make that set amount. So we set a goal for how many mushrooms we want to produce, and then we just pack that many blocks plus 10% extra because we have a 10% loss rate. Or we act as if we have a 10% loss rate. We overproduce all the time simply so we've got those mushrooms. So
I get it now.
Samantha said she got it.
It's under One Goddess Glass is the reason why.
Oh, it's not under Michael's Mama. It's under One Goddess Glass.
But it has Michael's Mama.
But it has Michael's Mama's
in the message.
In the message.
Your email. So that's where I was confused and I didn't really get the.
Sorry about that, goddesses.
Connection there.
We'll get back with you on that for sure. I hope that answers your question, Josh. BB, can't wait. I can grow mushrooms on the horse poop I have just sitting in my backyard. Gosh dang it. Well, yeah, you can. I mean, you can. You'll want to compost it. You want to pasteurize it. Buy your spawn somewhere. Lambert's is probably a good place to get Portobello spawn. Maybe Amisil too. Goddesses says, I just finished 4 20-foot long hugelkultur beds. Oh, nice. I love hugelkultur. I can't do it where I'm at right now because we rent the place, and I can't leave wood sitting underground, in mounds for people to get into. But when we get our own property, I'm planning on doing some of those. What varieties do you like that are best for 80 to 90 degree temps? I'm assuming that's Fahrenheit. Since that's Celsius, that'd be pretty bad. I'm going to try all the milky mushroom this year for summer. I've already got it growing in liquid culture. I've got it growing in dishes and grains. So at this point, I'm going to set it in a incubator and see if I can't get them to fruit. The golden oyster is good. The Elm Z oyster is a really good one for hot temperatures. I don't know that it'll grow in 90. When you're talking about 80 to 90 degrees temperatures, you're getting really into a really small range. Patty straw is probably a good one. It's very quick. It's hard to keep in dish because it'll cover a dish in a day. A little teeny tiny piece of culture will just grow across that dish. So, but any kind of tropical variety is what I would try. Can you use a regular canning pot to pasteurize growing bags instead of a pressure cooker? And if so, how long do you boil steam? Thank you. I never used one. I don't know what the temperatures are on it, so I have a hard time. I don't want to tell you something and be incorrect. So if you're able to generate steam, you want to get your core up to temperature for, roughly an hour. So, work within that. And I hope that helps. Look up pasteurization temperatures of sub, because that's what you're basically talking about doing. If you're producing steam, you're getting to pasteurization temperatures. Care to Grow says my brother has that. Lupus, or maybe what the other person was saying earlier. I think Goddesses was happy we found her. Pimp Jerk says, is there any known place in the world to buy proven psilocybin strain in a slant or petri dish, not spores? I don't know the answer to that. I've never done that. It would have to be somewhere where the tissue is legal. I know that there is a company here in East Tennessee that actually sells the spores. And in order to do that, they have to grow the tissue out. And I know that they are licensed. At least they used to be. I'm assuming they still are since they're in business. They are licensed to grow it for the medical trials that are going on. I know the owner of that. I'm not going to say his name or the company, but I know that happens. So I know that you can get licensed to do it, but I don't know of a place where you can go unlicensed. I'm not in Jamaica, but that would be cool. I was responding to legal psilocybin. Oh, okay. Understood. I got you, Carrie. So I've got something for you. Just a second. ATPM says, looking into getting a shed, what would be a good dimension? A 10 by 10. You can do a lot in a 10 by 10 space if you're just growing mushrooms. If you're talking about adding extra space in, I mean, keep in mind, growing at peak 900 pounds a week, and my operation is 800 square feet. So I hope that gives you an idea of how much you can do in such a small space. Vance Gabriel says, why is many of my second flush so stemmy on the Master's Mix? So without knowing more about your setup, I can only guess. My guess is that whenever you're tearing the mushroom off the block, it's leaving a concave, set where the substrate is. And so they're growing a little stemmier before they get out to the fresh oxygen. And therefore, they're going to have a little bit of stem to them. Other than that, second flushes never tend to be as good a quality as your first flushes. I've never. Sometimes I can get. Sometimes they're nice, and sometimes they're a little off. And that's one of the reasons why I don't count on my second flushes whenever I'm planning things out. I always, if I can't make money on it first flush, I'm not going to grow it. Goddess says, "Oh my God, Andrew, I'm an idiot. It was one goddess glass." So, yep, we got that figured out. I need to know if you guys have a source for having genetics done.
She knew more information than I did.
No worries, goddesses. You're not an idiot. We all slip up. You need to know if we have a good source for having genetics done. What do you mean by having genetics done? Do you mean like the analysis done? If so, yeah, get with me. I don't have a really good source for it yet, but I am working on that. So I will share with you whatever information I have. I am actually taking a genetics course right now, doing PCR and everything else like that, but it's actually just about to start. I haven't started it yet. So what kind of mushrooms do you recommend to grow in Mexico at temperatures between 20 and 65 degree Fahrenheit? Greetings from Mexico. Hey, well, greetings back. 20 to 65, pretty much any variety I grow. If you go to mosscreekmushrooms.com, all of those varieties that we grow will grow in 65 degree Fahrenheit. If you're talking 20 degree Fahrenheit, I don't know anything that will grow below freezing. So
Autocorrect is the worst.
And autocorrect is the worst.
I just did landing page and it turned it into jabbing outrage.
Samantha put landing page and autocorrect changed it to jabbing outrage. God, you gotta love that autocorrect.
Crazy.
Let's see. Pipdrick, gotta get to an appointment. Yeah, you're welcome, man. I hope you can make it on time. I hope I didn't keep you up. Kathy says, speaking of pasteurization, what's the internal temps and times for it to hold at temp? I've heard so many different variations. So there are charts that you can look at. If you look at pasteurization, just don't look at mushroom sources. Just look up pasteurization and go to the Wikipedia page. And it has charts and graphs and everything else. And that whatever the temperature it's saying that pasteurization is for that amount of time and sterilization, that's what your internal temp needs to be and needs to hold that for that length of time. Now, of course, the denser you are putting things. So like we do our blocks in a trough and it's pretty dense in the center. We have to go for hours before that internal temp is finally at temp. So Kathy, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I'm Wikipedia, just the Wikipedia page on pasteurization will have that information for you. Pretty easy. That's where I got it the first time I was looking for it. Muscle alien. Don't know what that means, but thank you. It's a good flex. What other mushrooms could you grow on horse manure? Well, I mean, obviously, any of the dung lovers are probably going to grow well on horse manure or cow manure for that matter. Typically composted is better than fresh, not always. Let's see. So milky mushrooms, wine caps. I think bluets will grow, but I don't know how reliably they fruit. I don't do a lot with dung. I didn't want to put dung in my basement for obvious reasons. So, oh my gosh, I got the hiccups. Most of the psilocybin species, like cubensis and stuff, will grow on it. Let's see. Portobello, cremini, button, which are all the same species. It's agaricus. The almond portobello. Basically, if it's listed as a dung lover, it should grow on horse manure pretty well. Costa said, yes, analysis. Thank you so much. I have 2 crazy lines, man. I want tested. Okay. I don't have a good source for it yet, but yeah, get with me. I'll share what I've got. I'm looking for it. Whenever I get around to being able to do it myself, I plan on offering that service to people in the Mushroom Syndicate or the Mossback Mushroom Syndicate. Kitty Bob says horse manure is too powerful that can kill mycelium. Yeah, you don't want it fresh. You want it not pasteurized, composted, so that it's not so bad. And I like to mix it with some sort of carbon-containing source like straw or something like that. That's what I'm planning on doing with the milky mushrooms is grow it out on straw and then case it with cow manure. It's a KOW manure. It comes in a yellow bag from Lowe's. John Grady, how long can you store lion's mane fruit bodies before they are no longer good to sell? I don't grow lion's mane. But my comb tooth and my bear's head, I mean, everything we grow, we try to sell it within 2 to 3 days. But my chefs, it seems like they're getting two weeks out of it and a shelf life in the refrigerator. So let's see. Care to grow? What kind of lab would you get to do analysis of the constitution of a fruit body? Okay, you mean like the chemical constituents? You would need a materials lab of some sort. What do they call that? It's a place where you get like soil tests done. They can often do fruit body tests, substrate tests, and things like that as well. It's the same machines that they use. John Grady says Ben is probably not around, but he's awesome. Yeah, he's actually already left for work. Actually, I timed this so that I get to talk to him. He'd leave for work, and then you guys would hang out with me until school bus gets here. And he is awesome. Ben's one of the best people I know. Josh Banks, I'm getting ready to do my first gourmets. I have some experience in growing. I did pea cubensis when I was younger. Is there much difference? Yes and no. If you're doing it the old tech way, that's not the best way for growing it anymore. But if you're following like our tech or some of the other commercial growers you see on YouTube, they'll be I assume you could grow cubensis this way. I don't see why not, but it will you'll need a different substrate is what I'm trying to say. You'll need a different substrate. So your process is going to be a little different, but it's the same basic principles. Growing mushrooms is growing mushrooms is growing mushrooms, unless it's not. So I hope that helps. ATVM, what is a good agar malt mix, pre-mixed or home mix? Actually, I just sent the footage home to Robin today to edit. So that video will be coming out in the next week or two about how I make my agar dishes and my culture slants. And then the next video after that will be how to work with culture slants and petri dishes and how to clean up cultures using water agar and things like that. So real quick, though, to answer your question, a good agar malt mix is you need malt extract and agar. I do 10 grams agar, 10 grams malt extract. And that's it. And that goes to 500 milliliters of water. BB says, I know that you have said that you have sold at farmers markets. What do you do to keep your mushrooms from drying out? I'm in Nevada. We are dry. So you're going to have a harder problem with that than we've had. East Tennessee is a wetland state. It is mountainous and it is swampy, and it is very much like the border between Scotland and England, where it's got those like highland swamps. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but so you're going to have a harder time than that. Now, something I did do in the summertime when it would get really dry, because we do have dry summers, is a Sterilite bin, ice, put the mushrooms on top of that. Samantha, did you do anything special? You just left them in boxes in the van or the coolers, or how did you do that?
In the high summer and the high heat at market?
Yeah, he's wanting to keep them from drying out at market.
I kept them in the box in the van, and I kept the van closed. I also requested to be underneath a tree or in the shade of a building. We're very lucky because we had at our farmers market, it's like a small park in the middle of it as well. And then we also had a fountain which kept the air kind of cool, and I was sort of set kind of close to that. So being opportunistic on your location is not a luxury for some. So it's
you've been in Nevada, you're gonna have a harder time with it.
But I will say that the boxes were refrigerated, and then I would put it in the van, and I would keep the van closed as much as I possibly could. And she'd
blast the AC on the way up to market.
AC the whole way there, just to make sure the van was cold.
But the mushrooms would look raggedy by the time she got back home. I mean,
it's very true.
Yeah,
and it's just
you're gonna have some waste with that. So,
but I wouldn't get them out until.
In the summertime, the table would only have a few baskets on it that she would work with, and then she would pull baskets up to replace those.
And it looked very lackluster. And I had some comments from some other vendors that were like, why aren't you doing this big, grand, extravagant thing? And I'm just like, look at it.
Because the mushrooms will be dead in like a week or in an hour, yeah. All right, so I'm falling a week further behind. So, no, you're fine. Why are you sorry? What is that?
It's an email.
Never mind.
To our teacher.
Danny says, if you put your grain spawn bags in your fruiting room before breaking up, with that fruit. If you put your grain spawn bags in your fruiting room before breaking it up with that fruit, I wouldn't break it up. Yes, I have fruited off grain. Your yields are usually not that great, but it happens. I mean, you can get it. I'm trying to eliminate the big flow hood. This is Brian. But still grow it. I'm trying to eliminate the big flow hood but I'm still growing bags and stay away from straw. Good luck, Brian. You can do it for sure. Ben and I are thinking that there is a good, cheap way to do bulk spawning without having to have a flow hood. We're going to be working on that and doing a video on that, but we're not there yet. I really recommend having a flow hood, but there are people that do it without. It's most important for spawn and culture work. I have some turkey tail spawn plugs and some logs here in East Tennessee. If I inoculate the logs now, should I bring the logs into the garage or on free? No, just leave them outside. It should be able to live out all year. When sourcing soy hulls, how to make sure it's not been sprayed with pesticides? I was surprised how easy it was to find them at bulk feed store here in upstate New York, but I don't know if they're safe to use. Or is that something to even worry about? I would think it would be. So every now and then I've had a bad, where nothing grows. The fungus just does not take off, and the mycelium doesn't leap off in the bag. And I have suspected that might be due to fungicides, where they spray them to keep them from molding around here where it's so wet when they're storing them. There's no way to know. I've talked to the co-op. There's no way to know whether you're getting pesticide sprayed or not unless you're buying organic. And even then, you're getting pesticides. You're just getting typically more toxic pesticides. So I hope that helps. I mean, I don't worry about it. You just keep buying. If you have a bad batch, just throw it away. Keep going. Awesome. I finished my HEPA filter this week, and I'll be following the series religiously. Greetings from South Texas, a few miles from the SpaceX site. Let's send mushrooms. Yes, let's do it. Oh, my gosh. Elon, watch this. I want to grow mushrooms on Mars. Oh, my goodness. I'll do your sewage dome. I'll take care of all your waste and recycle it, give you clean water and air in return. Just put me there, man. ATBM, let's do a SpaceX site mission sometime. We should work on that sometime. Lance Muir, sorry. Everything about coming to Maui, I have a 98% failure rate. I'll put you up. Hey, man, you guys pay for my time and my airfare and stay. I'll go anywhere you guys want. I actually travel quite a bit for consults. So, and I have yet to have a farm that has gone bust after I have been there, save one, and that one farm was going bust before I got there. And basically, when we got there, we said, "Look, just go bust. You're not gonna make it." Let's see. Goddess says there are tabletop humidifiers you can use. Man, now you got me thinking about Maui. Now I've got to go, right? There are tabletop humidifiers you can use for dry air at market. I have to use them here too. That's great, Goddesses. Thank you very much. So, hey, T Walker, or not T Walker, Nevada. Who was that? BB is BB. BB. There you go. Maybe buy a tabletop humidifier and see if you can't get like a fogger going or something to help you out. Thank you, Goddesses, for having my back. Brian says, you skipped my first question, lol, and a few others. Did I really? Oh my gosh, you're right. So the problem is that the chat keeps jumping, and I must have just missed your first one. It's really disorienting, man. I'm having a hard time. Is it possible to do a master bag topped with sawdust, then inoculate with liquid culture? Once the mycelium covers the sawdust, then mix into the box. So yes, but with grain, not sawdust. You can. I've seen people do that where they've done a pocket of grain, liquid culture goes there, and then once that's grown in, they mix it all up in there. It's like stratified layers, and then once it gets mixed in, it's all good. Sorry, my internet's lagging. Looks like. So I hope that answers your first question or your question, Brian. I'm sorry I missed it there. Oh my gosh, now it's like jumping again. And a few others. Did you have other questions on there too? Let me look just for Brian because I don't want to miss you guys. You all never feel bad about prodding me if I miss something. Brian, I'm literally not seeing any other questions on there. Unless you're saying I missed other people's questions, in which case I'm trying not to miss. Let's see. Josh Banks says, thank you very much for your wealth of knowledge. I'm planning on cold pasteurization straw and mono tubs for pinks for the first go-around, then moving to master's mix when things get going. What 5-pound bags do I order? The unicorn, not 5T, 14A. It's the unicorn bags. I think it's series 14. The letter will depend on what your filter patch is. If you're running bulk substrate, I always do 0.5 micron for my bulk substrate, 0.2 micron filter patches for my spawn. I hope that helps. You can go to Eric Myers and order myersmushrooms.com has bags. So he's got 5-pound bags. And then Mushroom Media Online is Seth Fisher. Both Eric and Seth ship reliably really quickly. Unicorn doesn't always ship reliably quickly. So, John Grady, thoughts on cold weather lime to get started? Oh, cold water lime. Oh my gosh. Also, I'm naming my business Forest Fruit Mushrooms. Hey, that's cool. Much love for all you. Oh my gosh, for all your videos, and you and your wife are inspiration. Thank you very much, John. We love you too. Let's see. Your question, though, is thoughts on cold water lime to get started. I've seen a lot of people use it with success. Some people that I've met who do it, don't do it barehanded. We've seen people do it barehanded, and their hands are eat up. So I think it's actually it's viable. I didn't used to think it's viable. I think it's a viable way to go now. So, if you give it a try, there's a lot of really good examples of that on Mushroom Growing on Facebook, which, by the way, guys, is over 100,000 members now. But if you do it, please come on and join our Mushroom Mossback, our Mossback Mushroom Syndicate. The hiccups are back. The Mossback Mushroom Syndicate on Facebook, and share any of the cold tech that you do. We don't have very much of that in the Mossback Syndicate, and I think that it would go really well with that. So I'd love to see. I want to see all kinds of experimentation, people sharing their results and their information, and having an open source community and place to do that. So please think about considering. Please think about joining. Start reading a question and trying to talk at the same time. Could I get transfer culture petri dish from a plug spawn? You can. Yeah, lots of people do it all the time. In fact, I hate doing plug spawn, and I'm thinking about doing away with it on my website, in part because plug spawn is so much cheaper than everything else. And basically people are just buying it to get my cultures. And I'm okay with that. Really, I am. But the liquid culture is the same price now. And I don't enjoy doing plug spawn. So I'm thinking about getting away from that. But people absolutely can do it. Can I order, Alan Cheek wants to know, can I order some Black Pearl King spawn from you? Yes, it's on the website. Just go check it out. Unless you're international. I'm not doing international shipping right now. Except Canada. Maui's awesome. Yeah, John, I really want to go for sure. Cleves, hi, I'm thinking about growing mushrooms with used coffee grounds and sawdust. Have you any knowledge on this? I think you guys are awesome coming from the UK. Thanks, Cleves. Yes, I used to do this. I used to do it quite a bit. My preferred way of growing with coffee grounds is to add my coffee grounds to my grain spawn, pressure cook it, and then allow the oyster mushrooms to grow through the grain spawn, then add that to my substrate. Reason being, coffee grounds are tiny, and it gives you a billion little inoculation points. Coffee spawn grows in really fast. In my experience, coffee spawn it works really, really well because it just sends mycelium everywhere, little seed points just to inoculate with. That said, the only strain that or the only species of mushroom I've grown that really likes coffee grounds is shiitake. Other than that, I haven't found oyster mushrooms tend to take a little while before they start to eat it. But if you mix it in with your grain spawn, they'll be just traveling over it to get to the grain. And then since they're there already, they'll start eating it. And you can actually use that to train it if you add more coffee grounds to your substrate. Because it's been in your grain spawn and the mushrooms are used to eating it, they'll leap off on it much quicker. Trying to get my mushrooms. Oh, no. See, it jumped again. Trying to get my mushrooms into his food trucks. A lot of the guys at the site are vegan. Oh, ATPM. I must have missed something. Oh, no, I guess not. I guess we're still talking about Elon Musk then. Trying to get my mushrooms into his food trucks. A lot of the guys at the site are vegan. I'll win over their stomachs. I'll send you an email, buddy. Yes, please do. mosscreekmushrooms@gmail.com goes directly to me. So if it's fish, Jason, you can send me to Maui in your place, boss. All right, Jason. If anyone's going to Maui, it's me. You might can come with me. Lance says, come, it's not a farm. Elon Musk is not the one you want to talk to. Kimball Muskrox. Yeah, Kimball's the farm brother. Sure, I'll talk to him too. So I've noticed that they do this a lot. So the Cybertruck, the pressurized version, is going to be the official Mars truck. And I knew he was doing this from the time I knew he had a rocket company and an electric car company. I was like, yeah, he's just practicing to make rovers. And then Kimball started doing the urban farm, the indoor farming, and he's leaning into that. You can't tell me he's not going to use that technology on Mars. So, Kimball Musk, yeah, get with me, man. I'll help you with the mushroom side. Ben will make you some stupid, simple stuff that will work even on Mars. Daniel Mallet said, I hate the unicorn bag number system. None of it makes sense. I agree. I hate it. Why will people not just standardize on something that makes sense? It drives me insane. Yes, none. BB says, what is the ideal cost for each mushroom block? Mine are as low as you can get it and still maintain your quality. But mine are right about $3.50 to $4 whenever things get more expensive. But if I can get all my costs down, basically during the peak season, $3.50 is labor and everything else. One production block, mushrooms grown, delivered, insurance paid for, electric, gas, wages, everything. I think it cost me $9. It's like $8.79. It's basically $9 to grow a block out and pay to have the mushrooms delivered. So hold on one second, guys. I have a call that I am going to have to call back since I'm on the live stream with you guys. Vance says, what temperature do you store your grain spawn at in the fridge? And then what temp and time do you use to prep it for spawning substrates? So I can just pull directly from the fridge and use it. As far as the temperature, whatever is as cold as I can get without my refrigerator freezing. So if I go in there, my refrigerator's freezing, then I just back it off a little bit. So my refrigerator fluctuates a lot throughout the year because we have such different conditions outside. And so I don't have a clean number that I use. I just fluctuate back and forth. But, I mean, you can take it down to right above freezing and be just fine unless it's a tropical species, in which case you don't want to refrigerate it at all. I will say that it is better to pull it out overnight if you can let the spawn warm up because it just on your hands when you're working with it, trying to crunch up all the spawn or anything like that, and your hands will be cold. It's just more comfortable to work with it room temperature. Kathy says, would have a good idea of the ratio of inoculation square feet to fruiting space. So I have my incubation space is my brood room is what we call it, is roughly a 10 by 10 room. I have a grow room that is 11 by 12. And then I have another grow room that's 11 by 19. And so but part of that comes down to the fact that in your incubation space, you're not fruiting mushrooms. So you're able to, put bags right next to each other. They only take up this much space between each other. I always just try to make sure my hand can fit between two bags so they don't touch and don't cook themselves during incubation. And then you can set them as deep as you want because you're not worried about going back there and harvesting mushrooms, So my grow rooms are just, single block faced everywhere for the shelves. And then in my incubation space, we can just pack that tight. So you can have a much smaller space, square footage wise, but the amount of cubic feet you're taking up by blocks is going to be higher. So, do you have a target point for moisture in your substrate? 60%. John said, absolutely, I'm on it. Joining the Mossback Mushroom Stick. Thank you very much, John. Love to see you there. I'll just make sure you answer the questions. I'll get on there and let you in as soon as I get back on Facebook. Hello there, line triangle. I don't know what your name is. Goddesses says, I soak my grain in coffee overnight, then add it whole when I PC. My shiitakes love it. Yeah, shiitake loves coffee. I make coffee agar for my shiitake, and it's just coffee just zooms right through the coffee agar. Too bad I don't grow shiitake because I'm not a tier 2 farm, and I can't really make money with it. I mean, I can make money, but if it's fish says I don't fit in overhead compartments. Yeah, Jason, I know. I don't either. You and I are the kind of big boys. So Ron Rasmussen says, also interested in your thoughts on adding gypsum to substrate and at what ratio. I don't add gypsum to substrate. I think it's an unnecessary step. So, but that's just in my experience. Maybe someone else has it. So I don't have a good thought on it or a ratio for it. Sorry, I'm trying to put this on silent so that it's not yelling at us the whole time. All right.
Welcome to our daily life.
Yeah, this is my daily life, guys. I woke up to a phone call this morning just before my alarm went off, and I'll probably go to bed with emails and messages and all that stuff. Let's see. Steven says, do you face any problems with lion's mane? I don't grow lion's mane and sell it, but I do grow other Hericiums, the comb tooth and the bear's head. You know, I'm probably going to start doing lion's mane just because it's popular. It's not my favorite. I don't like it. If I grow it, it'll probably just be to show you guys, maybe to make some supplements for myself and my family. My chefs just don't seem to want it as much as they want comb tooth and bear's head. And even then, Hericiums are only, I can sell maybe 25% of what I can of oysters. So, it's one of those things. I don't know what problems you might be having with it. I find that it likes slower airflow, less humidity, and doesn't like as bright a light as oysters, but it will do well in a room that's growing oysters. He says, I live like 20 miles from the Tesla Gigafactory. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing to live that close to it, but it's kind of cool to hear how he's like, man, 2 years ago, you hardly saw a Tesla in East Tennessee. Now I see them. I think Samantha says she sees them almost every drive now when she's delivering to like Blackberry in our restaurants. So that's cool to see him make that big. Like he's going to be the richest man in the world very soon, and then he'll be the richest man on Mars. So John Gray says, start a GoFundMe for a Maui trip. Make up some excuse for research. I'll throw in $5. That's an interesting idea. I wonder if there's some way we could use our Patreon for that. But I'm always hesitant to use GoFundMe or Kickstarter or anything like that. But if I did a let's go to Maui and do a farm video, and you guys contribute to that to do that, I'd be okay with that. If you guys wanted to start a GoFundMe and send me somewhere to tour a mushroom farm and let it be a surprise to me, don't know that I would. Yeah, I would do it. Absolutely, I would. You guys would send me somewhere cool. Wayne says, hello, Mossback fam. What's up, Wayne? I'm glad to have you. Dave says, why don't people make their own bags instead of getting from Unicorn, if not in the U.S.? Are the bags the size they are for convenience, or would you make bags bigger or smaller if you had the option? Okay, so Danny, my guess is because it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And it's not worth my time to make bags for me whenever I can buy them for pennies. And even if they're not ideal, I can systematize off the standard, and it's just I can lean into what I'm good at. I don't want to do the things I'm bad at. I want to do the things I'm good at, and so I don't make bags. As far as the rest of it, are the bags the size they are for convenience? I mean, they have all kinds of different sizes. So a lot of people use 5-pound bag sizes for their substrate because you actually get more mushrooms per pound of substrate off a 5-pound block than you do a 12-pound block like we do. But because that doesn't really matter, pounds of mushrooms to pounds of substrate, we go with the 12-pound block because that reduces labor costs drastically. I mean, we make one 12-pound block, and that costs us almost the same as making one 5-pound block, except we get 7 more pounds of substrate. So who cares if it's a little less efficient? Now, it is a little, harder on your shoulders and your arms and all that kind of stuff when you're shaking 100. My employees, sometimes like Jason and Laura will come in and they'll be shaking a 12-pound block, or they'll have to bust it up and it's like a brick. And so they have to work harder to do that. But in order to do that, I mean, like we'd have to do, 400 bags to equal our 170 bags, something like that. I mean, it'd be ridiculous. So they'd actually be doing way more work, even though it would be less difficult. Plus, we try to focus a lot on breaking it up on the table and stuff instead of using your shoulders. You know, you try to use the table and what's in front of you. So I find my bag to be very convenient and easy to standardize off of. No one says, question about humidity settings. No one says. You have said that you have low swings of about 80%. How frequently in a day do you have this set for, i.e. one time a day or 2 times a day? I don't have it set on a timer. It's set on a humidistat. So it's going to change day to day based on your relative humidity outside. In the wintertime, the swing happens a lot more. In the summertime, I take that back, I guess. So when it's wet outside, I might have it once or twice a day. Whenever it's dry outside, like the high summer or a freeze outside when the humidity is down to like nothing, the swing will happen a lot more. My floors will dry up a lot easier, and I'll have just, my mushrooms will have a harder time getting that humidity. So, but yeah, I don't see if it's fish. So Jason says Combs Tooth are so tasty in a nice stir fry. Bear's Head fry up very nice. Vegan chicken nuggets. Yeah. Jason cooks a lot. He's a good cook. Good cook. So you guys, we should do a cooking video with Jason. We've talked about it. We just haven't done it yet. BB says, what do you charge for a consultation trip? It depends on how long it is and how long you're wanting to do. I kind of negotiate the trips. If you're coming here, if you're doing it by phone, I do $200 an hour. If you're doing it here, I'll work with you 1 to 3 days for $1,000, as long as I don't have to stop production. If you're wanting me on a trip, it basically kind of comes down to when I went out to Colorado, they paid for my room, my board. I paid for my flight, but then, he paid me extra consultation costs to just make that up. And so basically, I would do it like the same thing as you coming here, just, like $1,000 for 1 to 3 days, if my room and board and flight are included. So, but I mean, that doesn't get you just for that 1 to 3 days. I mean, you get tech support with Ben. I've got people who are students of mine from 6-7 years ago. I still talk to whenever they've got problems. Like once I do a consultation, I'm not the type that once I do a consultation, I watch that time. Once you do it with me, man, you've got me. You paid for me. You got me. So, Danny says, gotcha. Insightful as always. Thanks, brother. Yeah, absolutely, Danny. I hope that really helps. Tyson says, oh no, it jumped again. Having a hard time sourcing soy pellets locally. Santa Cruz, California. Yeah, I've heard a lot of the people in California having problems. Any ideas for me? Shipping costs are concerned. So, alfalfa. I think you guys have a lot of horses out in the eastern part of the state, and there should be plenty of alfalfa pellets to get. Running 16% alfalfa and the rest of it hardwood fuel pellets, and then hydrate to your desired consistency, your desired moisture content. Do I love Terrence McKenna too? Honestly, I find his voice to be very grating, so I've not listened to him very much. I like Alan Watts a lot, and I've heard that Terrence McKenna is kind of like an Alan Watts. I do plan on reading Terrence's book, one of his books, very soon. I'm hoping. I'm sorry, I just think his voice is really kind of grating. So that said, from what I've understood of his positions, I find him fascinating. I find his subject matters fascinating. So. I'm not having any luck finding soy hull at any of the local feed supply stores. Won't even order it. Oh, really? They won't even order it? Like if you say, hey, I'm going to be buying it regularly, they won't order it? That's crazy. Online supplies seem too costly. They are expensive unless you're going to do it as a hobbyist. It's hard to make money doing that. As I said before, alfalfa pellets are usually everywhere. Sometimes you can use just sawdust and then overspawn heavily with oat spawn, and that, can help a lot. But there are other... I've heard of rabbit food tech, goat food tech, that kind of stuff where people are like supplementing with those. I've not tried those. Beet pulp pellets are supposed to be good, but I don't know the ratio on the beet pulp pellets. I've not used them, but I know people use beet pulp pellets, and those are used a lot west, I think, for ice control or something like that is what they were told me when I was out in Colorado. And then the alfalfa pellets are good. Do anyone like magic mushrooms? I mean, who doesn't? Glenn, like, go out in the woods? Yeah. Glenn Forster. Oh my gosh. This chat's jumping like crazy. What's a good fruiting temperature for chestnut mushrooms? I fruit mine at 65 degrees ideally. So they'll fruit down to 55. I've had them down to 55 and they'll fruit's what I should say. And I fruited them close to 75 and they all did fine. But I don't grow them all year, so I didn't know. I didn't try them in the high summer, so I don't know what the top temperature is for it. If it's fish, I'm down for a cooking vid. Yeah, Jason, let's do it. We'll talk about it when you come in Saturday. Jay LaRue said, we all do mushrooms. Yes, right? I mean, I may be the only mushroom farmer that I know, who got into this gourmet first and then got to try them. Most people I know tried them or at least grew them in their closets and then got into the gourmet side of things. So I'm a little weird when it comes to that. Robert said, what happened to Myers? I thought they were making bags, but I can't find them. The .com is unreachable. Really? Let's go to Myers Mushrooms. There's Myers Mushrooms. I don't know. The website came up for me just now. And his featured products page, he's got HEPA filters and like all-in-one HEPA filters and then filter patch bags going on. So I don't know, man. Maybe an internet problem. I need bags, but not $350 worth to get started. What are the two sizes I need? Are you doing grain spawn? Do you really need two sizes or do you just need one? Shroomsupply.com is a little bit more expensive on your bags, but you can order smaller sizes and Ryan ships really fast. You can also use code Mossy, MOSSY, for 10% off your order. I don't get a kickback from Shroom Supply. He just did that to help you guys out. So Milan says, hey, Andrew, does contamination in LC stunt the mycelial growth? It can, depending on the contamination. Oftentimes, if you've got a contamination that is strong enough to hinder the growth, you're not going to see any growth, and you'll notice the growth of the you'll notice the growth of the contamination. Oftentimes, if you can find a way to smell it, I don't know if you're like going to have to smell your liquid culture, in which case you run the chance of ruining it, or if you've got it in substrate, in which case you can open it up and smell it. If it's still sour, it's probably yeast. John Grady says, basically, lion's mane mycelia promotes longevity in aged mice. Mice live 23% longer when given Hericium aeruginosus mycelia on top of lion's mane supplements. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to try it. Though I assume that the other Hericium cousins have very similar active constituents, so I imagine that it would have a very similar effect. Maybe a combination would actually be better. Jay LaRose said, grading, his voice is lovely. Read True Hallucinations or Food of the Gods. Food of the Gods is the first one I was going to read. Yeah, I don't know, man. I find Alan Watts kind of grating too. Just the voice, the tone. But like after I've listened to Alan Watts for a little while, I start getting into it a little bit more. I forget, Yeah, I'm a weird one, man. I really am. I'm a weird mushroom person. So, and that I don't tend to fit the mushroom stereotype very well. BB says, awesome. Thank you so much for the information. As always, I'll talk to my husband about getting consultation with you. Yeah, absolutely. If you need anything, let me know. If you have any questions about the consultation, please email me at mossycreekmushrooms@gmail.com. I'll be happy to go through stuff with you. And as always, guys, like if you've got a direct question that I know the answer to that I can get to you very quickly, I'm just going to answer that for free. You don't need to do a consultation for that. But if you have specific issues that are going to require, a thoughtful response from me, that's going to require research from me or, that kind of thing, then I do require a consultation for that. But as always, if I already have the knowledge ready to go, I'm just going to, and you've got the question down, I'm ready to fire that out to you guys for free. I'm not going to nickel and dime you to death. Why would I do that? Tyson says, I always joke that psilocybin are a gateway. Which, yeah, I guess they are, man. I can see that. Thomas says, I love Liberty Caps and Golden Teacher mushrooms. I've never had an experience with Liberty Caps. I'd be down for it. I'd try it. Of course, once you guys start a commercial op, you can't keep that stuff on hand. Every commercial op I know in the area has had, just people show up and inspect your op and cops and stuff. And so You don't want to do anything illicit paired up with your legitimate op. So the only time I ever get to try them is whenever I'm somewhere else with someone who, does them, and that's all they do, and, that kind of thing. So there's that. So I don't get to do it very often. Ron says, I ordered from Myers just this day, already got confirmation. Yeah, Myers ships really quick, and it's not him. I think it's his wife handling the fort while he's on duty, while he's on tour. In the Middle East, I think he's still in the Middle East right now. He did a video in Egypt, and I don't know when he's coming back, but his wife has got it down, so they do a good job. Scott Congan says, cheers, mate. Have you ever grown out of 5-gallon buckets? If so, what was your experience? I didn't like it. I did do it. I didn't like it. Your substrate shrinks as the mycelium eats the material in it and expires the water. Your material shrinks, so your flushes get worse and worse because they have to travel further and further to the fruiting hole. Plus, washing buckets, it's too much labor when you just throw a bag away. Not to mention the hot water, the soap, all the oil you're burning to make that hot water. It's not really much better for the environment. So it is reusable. If you're going just out of a few 5-gallon buckets, that's great. But everyone I ever know who starts off doing it and it's like, it's so great for the environment, they either stop growing very soon after or they switch over to bags because, it's just hard to be competitive, man, when you've got that added extra moral step on you. So now if you're just doing it for fun, you're just doing it for food, then 5-gallon buckets are a good way to go because 5-gallon buckets in poverty, baby. That's 5-gallon buckets are what got me out of poverty. Toasty says, how to prevent those teeny tiny flies. You can't prevent them. You can manage them. Get your substrate out of your room very quickly. 2 flushes and done. Interrupt that life cycle of the larva and then put fly paper tape. You just go to Walmart and get fly paper. It's just rosin. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not toxic. It's not arsenic. It's not anything like that. Put it near your mushrooms, and as they come for the spores, they'll be, I'm dancing around on the mushrooms, spreading contamination, fly away, land on the tape, done. They're not going anywhere else. That's really the best way, the two-pronged approach of just managing them by interrupting the life cycle of the substrate. Keep your floors dry so they don't have a place to breed on the floor because they like wet places. If you have a gravel floor, cover it. Everyone I know who's ever had a gravel floor has great results in the beginning, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. It's because flies are breeding in those cracks. Lime that gravel heavy, put plastic down. Otherwise, keep your floors dry. Keep your substrate moving through your room. Don't let it sit and stay. It's one of the reasons why I hate straw. In order to get the amount of mushrooms you need off straw to make money, that bag is having to sit in there for way too long and letting flies breed. You'll see the little larvae crawling around. You'll even see them on your mushrooms as little orange spots, and when you look closely, you'll notice they're wriggling and moving. They will destroy a bag. They eat that mycelium up. T. Walker says, for an 8x8 grow room, what size fogger ultrasonic disc from House of Hydro would be best? Is a 6 enough? Would 12 be too strong? It's always better to go too strong. So get the 12, and then just let it run less often. You'll have to do less maintenance, and the unit will last longer. So that's my thought on it. Is always go too strong. If I had a small little thing, like a small little cube, I'd probably still put a 12 head on it and just let it sock that fog in and then just dry out completely and then sock it with fog again. So Sweet Life 529 says, I'm inoculating my bags. As far as your 8x8 room, sorry, Walker, 8x8 room, my room's 11x19 and I use a 12 head. So you might be able to get away with a 6, but if you can afford it, just go with the 12. Always make sure you also have a big reservoir. You want a big reservoir with cold water, air moving across it always if you can. You want to keep these units cool. Heat is what kills them. So don't put them in a little bucket. When I first got them, I put them in a little 5-gallon bucket and got mad at John at House of Hydro because the unit tore up when I didn't listen to what he said about making sure it had plenty of cool water. So my units were dying really quick. Don't do what I did. Do what you're supposed to do. Make it a big bin. All right, Sweet Life 529 says, I'm inoculating my bags with lovely oat spawn right now. Thanks to you. Hey, I'm glad that it helps. Oats are just, oh my gosh, they're the way to go. I know everybody's all about milk because of inoculation points, and you might shave a day or two off your incubation time, but who cares about a day or two of bags sitting there? You're not working. Everything should be managing your workload, and oats are the easiest to work with. Why would you want to work with anything else? Once you get that system down, it doesn't matter to shave a day or two off, right? Because what matters is your weekly workload, not how fast stuff moves. Whoa. My chat just jumped with 15 questions. I thought I was near the end there. Coldest kind of oyster mushroom to start in the spring. Blue oysters, any kind of blue oyster is typically good. The Lambert's 1-2-3 is a really good one. My blue oyster is a descendant of 1-2-3, but I haven't done a cold tolerance test on it. It'll fruit down to 55. But I have put Lambert's, which is supposed to be an indoor strain. I put that on logs outside and got that to grow. So, and they came out beautiful, like black. Like they're so blue, so navy blue, they looked black. If you come to Norway, we can pick them together. Hey, you send me out to Norway. I'll go to Norway. I've always wanted to go to Norway. I don't know why. So many people want to go to Sweden, and I guess I would go to Sweden if given the opportunity. But Norway, Finland, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Germany, all of those areas really interest me. Basically, any of Northern Europe. But I'd love to go to Norway. Young Magico says, "Hey, it's Rainer Winkler. What's up, Rainer Winkler?" Scott Conkin says, "Thank you, sir. Appreciate. Keep up the great work and great content. Will do, man. We're going to try to throw even more at you this year than we've ever done. So we're trying to do 2 to 3 videos a week. Right now, flu is making round 3 through Jeff County, so it's already knocking at the door of a couple of my employees. So the videos may slow down a little bit for a week or two. That's actually why I'm doing a live stream today. In part, is to kind of help keep content going for you guys without having to have my editor, edit for me while she's having a hard time." Young Magico says, Bone Clinks visited me. I'm Drakenlord. I'm so confused. Goddesses says, "I have had mosquitoes poking the caps of my mushrooms. Things are worse than the flies." Yeah, mosquitoes are very attracted to them. That fly paper will help with that some too. Keeping airflow going through. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to manage that with your substrate by breaking the life cycle. They're not, but keeping your floors dry will help because they will breed in your room. I've seen that. I've seen like just a tiny little skein of water across the surface of a floor and a little wriggler, little baby mosquito living on just a damp floor. So, they keep your floors dry if you can. John Kim says, "Have you ever had an experience with mucor, pin mold, and spawn?" Yes, and basically, most of the time when I've had that problem, it's been a problem with my cook. That's actually, so people always say that I cook my grain way too long. I cook it for 2.5 hours at 15 psi, and people are always telling me that I'm cooking for too long. But I've cooked for an hour and a half, and I'll tell you that I had pin mold more often at that rate. 2.5 hours, not a problem. So, also with my substrate, I tend to see pin mold when we've had an improv, like when one of the heating up elements in our steamer went out. If you couldn't source hardwood fuel pellets, would you still avoid straw and skip mushroom cultivation altogether, or are there other alternatives? I think people are growing on Douglas fir pellets. If I had the infrastructure to grow with straw or employees who could handle all the worst parts, I would still grow. You could get bulk sawdust. If you could get bulk sawdust, it would be that way. I would go bulk sawdust before I went back to straw. And heck, I would probably grow mushrooms on logs before going back to straw. I hated straw. Now, that said, if I had, like I said, an industrial setup that really had the infrastructure to where straw was easy and I wasn't like dying of allergies all the time and finding straw in my underwear and wallet and jacket and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, I would do it with straw. I don't have a problem with straw itself. It's just the ease of use. Really want to hear about the thing where you grow oysters, then shiitake, then buttons. So Daniel, I don't actually have a lot of experience with that. It's in Paul Stamets' book. He talks about, oh my gosh, I can't remember the word for it. When you do it in series, basically growing serially, where you grow your oyster mushrooms to break it down, and then you grow something else to break it down further, and then shiitake maybe, and then portobello when it's basically just compost. And I think that it'd probably be better to do if you've got a mixer to work with. So Helen says, "Thanks so much for sharing, Andrew. Looking forward to Monday's consultation." Hey, Helen, I'm looking forward to it too. I hope you're finding the material handy. I will be going in there and updating it over the next few weeks. So anything that you and I go over will help me inform to make the next consultations better. And as always, like I said, teaching and consultations, talking to you guys, that's always my favorite part of this. So, Daniel, as far as read, going back to your question, I feel like I didn't answer that really well. The problem is I just don't have the information. I would look into Paul Stamets' book, Growing Gourmet and Medicinal Mushrooms, and Mycelium Running. I think he goes over it in Mycelium Running even more than in Growing Gourmet and Medicinal Mushrooms. That's the best way I could send it. That's the best place I can think of to send you for that. Peter McCoy may go over it in his book, Radical Mycology, but I haven't read that part yet. I mean, it's such a big book. I kind of just go to the sections I'm interested in at the moment and then read for fun when I have that time. Let's see. David Harley says, keep up the hard work, MCM. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. We will. We'll keep it up. Helen says, grain spawn, oats only or 2/3 oats, 1/3 Miller for Myers? Oats only is all I do. I don't do millet. You could do millet. Millet, in my experience, bursts really easily. You have to have your hydration on point. I like things that are more forgiving, things that I can just do that don't require a lot of effort. Eric is very dialed in. Eric likes things efficient. Eric goes for the most efficient part every single time. And the only thing I care about that's efficient is I want the whole system to be overproductive. So the best way to do that is to have good management at every step. And the best way to have good management is to reduce the manager's workload. I can pay attention to more things when I'm focused on the whole. If I focus on every little detail, I'm going to get gummed up in the details. And so that's kind of why I do things the way I do. That's why I do them with oats, where I do the soak method, the soak, drain, bag method. I don't like things that require or that have a lot of impediment to action, right? The problem with making every little piece efficient is that it often gums up the works of everything. It often gums up your mind, and it often does, it often creates impediment to action where you have to overcome internal mental resistance before you do that task. For me, everything I've done is just a system that I work every day. I just prep that, move on, prep that, move on. It's a simple cycle. The steps are simple. I've reduced it down to as few steps as possible. And that's why I go with all oats. So if you want to do millet, I don't think it's bad. It's got more inoculation. You're going to have more inoculation points for the same poundage of spawn. But I don't find that oats colonize really any slower than millet. So I don't know why you would care. And honestly, if I do want more inoculation points, just throw a handful of coffee grounds in a bag. That does better than millet in my experience. Ibrahim says, hi, everybody. I love you. You know that. Well, if you're talking to everybody here, we love you too. And I'm sure everybody in the group can say theirs if they want to. Thomas says, yes, Norway in September and October. Lots of amanita muscaria. That's one I've never gotten to try. I'm a little scared to try that one. But Norway in the fall sounds beautiful. I mean, I can just imagine. Paul says, when you say oats in context to supplementation for fruiting bags, can you use oatmeal from the grocery store for fun, hobby stage here, or would you feed oatmeal, or would feed oatmeal be better nutrition? So you can use rolled oats. You can use oatmeal. The problem with grains that have been cracked like that is that after they cook, they often bind together. So trying to bust that up, or like wheat bran or anything like that, if you add your materials and then add your water and then cook it, like gluten from the wheat bran will cook into like a glue, and you're trying to bust those blocks up, and it's just like punching glue. So that that's one of the things about using that grain, the busted up grains. Cracked corn I think works pretty well, but cracked corn's got a lot of sugar in it, and I don't find that a lot of sugar actually helps the mushrooms that much. Benjamin Dooling, I know your air is replaced roughly every 3 minutes. Would a room like yours fruit adequately at 6 minutes? I think it would be stimmy. We have to crank that fan pretty high from the moment it goes in. So I'm pretty sure it would be difficult to grow quality mushrooms at doing it every 6 minutes. That said, if I lowered my stocking rates, I would probably get just fine. Vance says, you're welcome to visit my operation on Oahu anytime. Captain Mushroom, hashtag Captain Mushroom. Yes, please. I would love to go to Oahu. I hope I'm saying that right. Would the bulk sawdust still need to be from hardwood? You can use certain softwoods. I'm not as familiar on this. I think people are using Douglas fir. I think people are using ash. I don't really know what else is commonly used out there. East Tennessee mixed hardwoods are hard not to find. So it's one of those things. Thomas, I saw that you put your email in there, and I'll go ahead and write it down, but it's hidden the message. If you want me to hit show, I'll show. Otherwise, I'm just going to hold it for review as it is right now, and then only I will have your email address. So that's up to you what you want, but I'll go ahead and write it down right now. Oh, I messed it up. Actually, Thomas, if you can just email me at mossycreekmushrooms@gmail.com. I'm going to write this down, but I'm afraid I'm getting it wrong, and I don't want to keep everybody waiting. So, Running Bears says, "You too, me four." Indeed. Ron Rasmussen said, "Aside from fuel pellets, what are your best recommendations for supplements to grow shiitake?" So fuel pellets would not be the supplementation, but if you're looking for supplements, Wheat Bran is the best one that I have found. A 40% Wheat Bran, 60% hardwood fuel pellet mix for shiitake. Shiitake strains 3790 and 3782 are the ones I have most experience with that I liked. I've grown every strain that Field and Forest has to offer on blocks, and the Jupiters were awesome. They took me about 8 months to get. So they're not worth it money-wise, but a shiitake cap, that's like, that you could make a personal pizza with a shiitake cap that big, but it takes forever to get them. So, but Wheat Bran is the only thing I can recommend because it's the only thing I've got experience with, and I don't know much else there. But Wheat Bran is pretty stable across the country from what I'm finding from people. So, Gossa says, "I cook 2 hours on my grain because of mold. I also 15 PSI for 45 on my agar. Most people do 15. Yeah, I agree. I do 15 minutes for 15 PSI for 30 minutes for my agar, 15 PSI for 2.5 hours for my grain. I could go down. I've had really good results with 2, but I just cranked it up by another 30 minutes. People talk about caramelization of your sugars and your substrate like it matters. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We've tested this out with a lot of different people, and it doesn't matter." BB says, "What safety equipment do you recommend for growing mushrooms, i.e. respirator?" I recommend a respirator. Now, I have a beard. It's not perfect, but I cinch that thing down. I've got fat, chubby cheeks. That respirator holds on pretty well. That's what I suggest. Guys, keep your lungs safe with oyster mushrooms in particular. Those things will tear you up. The mushroom flu feels like the worst flu you've had. And it just you'll feel better when you stay away from the mushrooms, and then you come back, come back to work in your mushrooms, and you start feeling the flu again. Wear that respirator. As far as that goes, I like the full face respirators with the face shield because, you got some splatter going on. Those things are ridiculously expensive, so at least just a respirator and nitrile gloves. It's the 2 big things I would suggest. There's actually pictures I've seen of a guy who worked at Monterey Mushrooms, and they would pick without gloves at Monterey Mushrooms. I can't remember his name. It was Juan something, I think. But he had, I think he had an autoimmune disorder. He had mycelium growing in the cracks of his hands and under his fingernail buds. He had handled it so much, and he had the autoimmune disorder that mycelium just took up residence in his body. And he would sanitize, he would sterilize, he would scrub with soap, and everything would be fine. And then mycelium would just start growing back out again. It was in his body. So, nitrile gloves are a big thing. Daniel says, "Thank you, sir. You are a wealth of information." Hey, thank you, Daniel, for joining us and asking questions, man. This is what makes it worth it. Thomas, it looks like your email address came up again. Joe, show it. All of you people are amazing, smart people. Okay, there we go. I hit show. Goddesses says, "Have you guys thought about getting your spent blocks to giving our spent blocks to livestock farms?" I have. We actually tested the blocks out with pigs, and they needed to be trained to eat it. It seemed like once they were trained to eat it, they ate it just fine. But after a while, chickens, we used to keep chickens in our mushroom blocks. We'd throw them out there, and it wasn't until the mycelium started to die off on the outside that the chickens would scratch open the blocks and start picking out the grain. I noticed they never really did care about the mycelium or the sawdust or anything like that. They did bust it out and spread it everywhere, which was kind of nice for the yard, Do you use oats or groats? What are groats? Groats. The heck is a groat? Groat. Any of various medieval European coins, in particular an English silver coin. Groats are whole kernels of various cereal grains such as oat, wheat. So I've never used that. I don't know that it would work well for spawn, but it might work really well for a substrate. So I'm just starting up as a hobby, and I use oats, not groats. I'm just starting up as a hobby, is what Cleve says. Do I need to get into agar, or can I just use liquid culture? Liquid culture is probably going to be easier to get to. As a beginner, you probably don't have all the tools that someone who's been in it for a little while has. And, going with liquid culture, there's you don't ever have to have a HEPA filter. You don't have to have any of that stuff. It's really cheap lids, syringes, things like that. Your mycelium is never brought out into the air to where it's exposed. So I would go with liquid culture before I went with agar. Danny said, I got to jump as always. Thanks a million. Good vibes to you and your business. Much love. Thanks, Danny. You too, man. Have a good day. I'm actually going to have to be leaving, guys, in like 5-10 minutes. As soon as that bus pulls up, I'm just going to say goodbye and jump off here, questions or not. So just FYI, you've got me for just a little bit longer. Yes, please hit that like button, folks. It helps me. Greetings, Soul Alchemy. It's funny. We do talk about how we're dwarves here who practice alchemy, right? Because I do stack silver. I buy silver rounds and things like that and invest in precious metals. And so I'm literally taking mushrooms, or I'm taking sawdust and transmuting that into gold and silver. So I like that name. Robert says, do you know if there are mushroom growers in Northwest Louisiana? I may have this market to myself. So I know Mushroom Maggie Farm is in Louisiana. I don't know where they're at. I think they're actually really close to the coast. So I don't think that I know anyone in your area. Also, if I purchase your Pathfinder and your King Blue, do they lose genetic potential every generation? Not really. I actually went over this a lot in the last live stream. Mushrooms are basically immortal, and they're not. But they are. It's diabetes is the simple word for it. Basically, it's like mushroom diabetes. It's called enzyme blindness. Sydney Obersingleton's the guy that taught me about this. Basically, if you just feed them sugar for their entire lives, eventually they'll lose the ability to manufacture sugars for themselves out of sawdust and your soy and stuff. So they will age by going blind. The best way to do that is just to run them on straight sawdust occasionally, run your cultures through that, or keep a culture in a slant from as close to the we'll be going over this in videos in like 2 to 3 weeks. But keeping a culture as close to the original as possible is basically the best way to do it. Smith says groat equals whole on oat. Gotcha. Thank you. Soul Alchemy says great stream. Thank you, Soul. I appreciate that. Lloyd Simmons, what do you think of vertical racks versus slanted racks? Some people have started to put racks at a slight angle. I don't like the angle. I feel like you're losing a lot of your usable space. Now, I saw that Oak and Spore did it. They Bus is here, by the way, so you got me for like a split second. Oak and Spore did it, but he said he's prone to earthquakes, so that would be a good reason to do that. Yes, please, everybody, all hit that like button. Just take contact if you are going on to Norway. Man, contact me. Let's go to Norway. And he says, silver kill all bacteria and viruses known to man in 6. Yeah, I've seen that. I don't know anything about that. So thanks, Growing Oregon. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to end my stream now. The dogs are sounding the alarm. So you all have a very good day. Remember, y'all, keep spawning culture.